What's going on, guys? I actually do need to keep my voice down. Aspen is asleep. Um, Anyways, let's get into it. So this video is actually regarding how we change and how we adapt or get left behind as collectors, or in other words, how we evolve as collectors. No pun intended. So there's I've been talking with a couple of subscribers about kind of how when you first get back into collecting, some people have been collecting their whole life. Some people are natural collectors. I'm a natural collector. I think I've collected with a lot of different things in my life, cars, jewelry, shoes, now cards again, and it's kind of interesting how I've gone through the same things and collecting other things that I'm going through with Pokemon, where you kind of jump into the hobby or jump into collecting something or researching something, and you start buying things, you start making purchases that don't exactly make sense, and later on you're like, why did I do this? But you're itching to get into this hobby, and in terms of Pokemon specifically, you want to get your collection going. You want to get the stuff that you want to get as soon as possible. But I think that there's actually like stages that people go through, and this is in my experience, right? Like, I'm telling you guys my experience as a collector and what I've gone through the past couple years, collecting, starting from just finding my childhood stuff to slowly accumulating new vintage stuff as well as modern Pokemon product. So here are the stages of collecting. In my opinion, there are stages. Now, there's no really end point, right? There's no end goal. I don't think that you ever finish collecting. Like, collecting is a never-ending hobby, and you just have to get better at taming it and better at moderating. I made a video that's probably my most viral video. It has 10,000 views. It makes up for a seventh of the entire channel's views. This channel has about 70,000 views at this point, and 10,000 of them have been made up for a video where I talk about how Pokemon, collecting Pokemon can be harmful, as anything can be harmful if you're not moderating it. If you're doing things without moderation, it can be harmful. Everything in excess can be harmful, right? Like, if you drink too much water, you can die. I think somebody even made that comment. Anyways, the point of this video is to kind of go through those stages and talk about those specific stages that I went through. And if you guys want to chime in the comments and let me know how you guys collected, some people are very savvy. When they get into a hobby, when they get into something, when I bought my first car, I didn't know what I was looking for. I jumped into it. And I bought, my first BMW was not the one that all my friends were going after. I didn't really know any better. I just knew I wanted a BMW. With sneakers, when I was getting into collecting sneakers, as a younger guy, I just wanted, certain ones that I thought were cool. And in the end of the day, it's about what you like, right? It's not about the hype. It's not about what everybody else likes. It's not about the thing that's the most expensive. Like, for that case, I could just say, all collectors end up in the same place. They end up collecting the most high-end cards, and they end up collecting the trophy cards. But that's impossible because there are only so many really high-end, valuable collectibles out there, and not everybody is going to be able to have them. Some of those include trophy cards, like the Pikachu Illustrator card. Some of those include PSA 10 Charizard first editions, 250,000, 500,000. The average person is never going to find this stuff. Another thing that's included are like championship promo cards, these trophy cards, cards that are extremely valuable based on their rarity and their limited, being just a couple of them are out there in the world. Another big one is uncut sheets. If you don't know what I mean by an uncut sheet, I am literally talking about people that own these sheets that Pokemon originally printed before the cards were cut up on a slicer. There's these big sheets that all the cards are on. Like, the average collector is not going to get their hands on that stuff. Now, it would be amazing to get an uncut sheet of the print runs that are out now. Like, oh my gosh, if we had an uncut sheet of Sword and Shield era cards, that would be sick. I don't care what it is. It could literally be freaking Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage, Chilling Rain. Anyways, getting off topic here. It doesn't just end with like the most expensive thing. There's levels to it, right? Super extreme OCD. Got it. I got it, guys. We're good. There's levels to this stuff, right? And so we're going to break down these levels and get into it. So bear with me, guys, because this one's going to get ranty. So first off is, let's distinguish these levels. So I think that these levels consist of, and this is not precise, but this is based on what I kind of did and what I think most people are going to end up doing. There's your opening products, retail products everywhere. You're opening whatever you can get your hands on, trying to find those special cards. Even though when you look at the sets that are coming out, there might not even be anything that you're inherently excited about, but you do it anyways because you don't know any better. This is the average collector getting into the hobby, right? It's the average collector getting into the hobby. Okay, so you're ripping open retail product. That's number one. Okay, what's coming up next? Buying singles. You know, you learn from opening up the product that you're not getting what you want. So you're learning that your luck isn't that great, or the odds, the probability, the mathematics, like you rationalize with the mathematics and the odds and probabilities. And you're like, the chances that I get this card, this is what I did. I opened up a ton of product. I struck out, and then I started buying the singles. And I started getting what I want, and the value and the return was so much better. Even though even buying singles can be risky because you really kind of never know what you're going to get. You just got to shop with people that are reputable, that are decent human beings. Okay, so next, if you're going for your singles, what is going to happen along the lines while you're chasing those singles? You are going to run into wanting to complete sets. And maybe you don't want to run into completing sets, but you're going to run into wanting all the holographic cards from one set. Like, let's forget master sets, okay? Because Pokemon cards have gotten so expensive. And master sets are great, but I don't even know if master sets really hold their value because so many people only care. Like, I love master sets. I think master sets are great. Would I try and complete the master sets of any Sword and Shield set? Probably not, because it would be very difficult and it would take a lot of time and I would pull my hair out and scream. And at some point, I think that would be very interesting video content for me to try and complete master sets of all the Sword and Shield era sets, which sucks because I was in that era and I could have tried completing them, but I didn't because I just felt like it was going to be too hard, it was going to take too long, and honestly, in a lot of ways, I believe that to still be true. I think if I had opened a bunch of packs and gotten most of the cards, like most of the commons and uncommons, I would be left with wanting so many rainbow rares, secret rares, radiant cards. There's just so many different variants. To completing master sets. So when I say, from ripping retail packs, number one, singles, number two, binder number three, I'm not necessarily saying that it has to be master sets. I'm just saying we binder our cards. You start getting singles, you need a place to store them. For me, I started stacking them in a box. Like I hate all these cards that are in front of me. It makes everything so difficult. Ugh. Okay, but this is just for reference. This is a box of all of my Wizards of the Coast promo cards. By promo, like these guys, these promos that are kind of, and I think promos are a really interesting niche, because promos are going to be very scarce at some point, and I think promos are really starting to go up in value. But anyways, you're looking for a way to store all these singles. So you might just buy acrylic boxes. When I first got back into collecting, I was just stacking the cards because one, you're putting pressure on top of each card. I think it actually works out really nicely, stacking cards in like a nice acrylic box. And then they're all right there. You can take them out, you can sift through them. The only issue there is when you're trying to get a big log of cards out, you can mess up the cards trying to get them out. So this gets into the next thing, the binders. So you're ripping packs, you're ripping retail products, then you're going into buying your singles, and then you need a binder to store these singles. And you kind of start getting obsessive and compulsive, and you're like, okay, I have to have everything set a certain way. So you get into the binder. Next, you're gonna get into graded cards. We just talked about grading recently. Man, I would love to speak up and be a little bit louder, but I just don't want to wake my daughter up. But we talked about grading cards. Is it worth the time, the effort, the resources? And I'm here to say that I think there's arguments on both sides. I think that you can be a raw card collector, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you can stick to the binders. And honestly, it's very simple to just stick in that approach. Unfortunately, it's even getting hard to find cards that are in good condition, that are old, that are raw. In some cases, there's so many graded cards because everybody is grading cards that it's almost easier to find certain cards graded. Okay, so we got on graded. Okay, after that, and then I'm gonna kind of do a recap of all these different, all these different forms of collecting. After that, I think the average person goes from the slabs to sealed collections. That's kind of what I'm starting to do. There's still so many single cards that I really, really want. Like, I feel like it's so hard to ever leave the phase of collecting singles because there's like an infinite number of possibility cards out there. There's so many sets some of us don't even know we're around. McDonald's cards, mini expansions, the Pop series. A lot of people don't even know what Pop series are. It was a tiny little, little mini print runs of cards that were absolutely phenomenal. The Pop cards are some of my favorite cards, and maybe as I grow as a collector and acquire all of these different types of, expansions and series and sets of cards, I can go over those and review those. Man, the content possibilities are endless when you're talking about Pokemon, like especially when you have a large collection and there's so much stuff that you want to touch base on. So, sealed collectors, I think I'm at the point where, I love singles, I'll always love singles, but at the end of the day, what's going to provide me the most value, in my opinion, it's sealed stuff. It's modern sealed product. I was just having a conversation with one of the subscribers over Instagram. That's where I have a lot of these conversations, and I love them because they help spark, new ideas and new content, even this whole idea about the phases collectors go through. I've talked about this with somebody. I thought that was kind of interesting. You guys are amazing. You guys are always fueling, new ideas and, new content, that I'm going to end up coming out with. But anyways, this collector had, kind of collected everything that was vintage. And we were both kind of talking about, like, once you get to a point where you feel like you've got everything vintage or got everything that you want that's older or that's attainable or, affordable, because this stuff's so expensive, you can only go so far with it if you're an average person. You get to the point of saying, all right, the thing that's going to give me the most value are these sets that are dropping now, not Sun and Moon, not the stuff that came out 5 years ago, Diamond and Pearl. While, somebody did say in the comments that they were buying Diamond and Pearl singles. I think that's great. I think that there's a lot of them out there now, and they're going to go up in value in the next 10, 20 years. That can be said about everything Pokemon, because the new market of Pokemon is insane. It's totally inflated, but I think it's kind of like a stock that got pumped, and then everyone is holding the line, like nobody wants to sell. Nobody wants to get rid of their stuff. Everyone loves Pokemon now. It's a mainstream thing. It's gone up a level. I don't think there's any going back now. So even if a bubble pops for vintage, everyone is on board with modern products. So it's kind of like the next leg up of Pokemon investing has happened. We're never going back, I think, to 2019, 2018, 2017 prices. I would love if that happens. Everyone would love if that happens. Even if I lose a ton of money, I'm still going to be able to collect stuff at a fraction of what I paid these past 2 years, and that doesn't bother me. That's great. But, you get to a certain point where you feel like you've got everything relatively, and you're thinking, what's going to give me the most value? And it's always going to be a sealed product. And so when I was talking with another subscriber, they were asking me, and I've done a video on this as well, what kind of products are the best? And I'm always going to come back to this. Booster boxes, booster boxes, booster boxes, booster boxes. One of our subscribers, I haven't seen a comment from him in a while, but he was always like, yo, I just got another case of 6 booster boxes of this set and this set and this set. and another subscriber of mine, sent me a picture of their closet. They have 45 cases of sets from this year, and I'm like, damn, I thought I was a big shot with like 4 cases of stuff in my closet, because I've focused primarily on vintage stuff. So I've really kind of, these modern sets, I just said, oh, I'm going to buy a booster box or 2 boxes of each set, thinking that I was, hot stuff. But now I'm realizing the smartest people that are forward thinking, seeing into the future of the hobby. And Rudy from Alpha Investments is a great example of this, $3 million position in sealed booster boxes. This is the way, guys. This is the way, like Mandalorian type deal. This is the way. Sealed booster boxes are the way to go. Now, I was talking with a subscriber about ETBs. ETBs are great, but at the end of the day, the cost to ship out an ETB is the same as shipping out a booster box. But you're going to sell that ETB for a fraction of what you're going to sell the booster box for. Now, if we're talking about special sets like, Shining Fates, Hidden Fates, Celebrations, Crown Zenith, perfect example. They only are going to have the ETB, so there's no way of getting around that. But if the cost is the same to ship out each one, and one is 100 and one is 200 or 300, the shipping is going to eat away your cost at that ETB at any profit. And you could, in a couple of years, have a great profit, but it's still going to eat away at the cost. Whereas the booster box is going to prevail. Not only that, the booster box really gives you those guaranteed hits. They might not be the hits that you want, but at least they're guaranteed hits. And one of the subscribers messaged me that they got 2 secret rares in a booster box of Silver Tempest. So all these, when we hit 1,300 subscribers, it's going to take everything in me to not want to open up all these packs. I know we've got so many YouTubers that open up boxes and boxes of product, but that is not me, and that is not most of the people that are on this channel. Most of the people that are on this channel have money to go out and buy a couple packs or, buy a couple products and sit on them. That's like 80-90% of the people that are collecting the hobby. There's like a 1% of collectors that are ripping tons of product, and YouTube monetization definitely helps with that. So, down the road, who knows what I'll be doing on this channel. It'd be great if we could pull a secret rare and, while we're hitting these subscriber milestones, if we could pull a secret rare from one of those packs, that would be phenomenal. I don't even care what it is. I really want to know that, the booster box odds are pretty good. Because I opened a lot of sleeves of Brilliant Stars and it just wasn't working out for me. But I also opened a booster box of Brilliant Stars and it didn't really work out. So I feel like it's just a hit or a miss and it's just the luck of the draw. But so sealed product, I really think sealed product and like grail cards, maybe not like trophy level cards, like really expensive cards, but grail cards, like, your first edition, for me, a first edition Lugia, I still don't have one. A first edition Typhlosion, I still don't have one. A first edition Blaine's Charizard. Like, there's so many first edition type cards that I really want that I consider kind of grail cards. And to add to that point, before going down a rabbit hole, it's kind of better to buy unlimited cards, like the cards that don't have the first edition stamp, like Neo Genesis regular Lugia unlimited, instead of getting the first edition Lugia, because at the end of the day, while this is happening less with these other sets and more so with the very first set, the Shadowless cards, people are fake stamping Shadowless cards, they can still do that to unlimited cards. So it's something that can be replicated that people have been caught doing and seems to be getting around a little bit. It's simmering right now. No one's really talking about it, but I think it's something that's sinister that people could be doing. And I just feel like it's a safe bet buying Shadowless cards. It's a safe bet buying unlimited cards because you're getting exactly what you're buying. There's no possibility that there's like a fake ink stamp on there and you're later on going to find out you got screwed. Like that's terrifying. But anyways, I think sealed collections and grails are at the end of the line. So going back through these, because now we're 20 minutes in. So you're ripping your retail experiences. I went into GameStop. I bought someone on here that I'm pretty sure is a subscriber that's worked at GameStop or still is, but they can tell you the people that have worked in these retail shops have seen me come in there. And I hate to admit this, but I was that guy. I was part of the scalping. I didn't know any better. I just felt like everybody was doing it and I had the Pokemon bug. And I would go in and I would buy out entire displays, and you can rip on me for this, but I didn't know any better. On top of that, I was dragging my wife and kid to Targets and Walmarts and buying out whatever I could find there. And I was getting, trust me, I got my karma. I did not get any really crazy pulls. I didn't get any really good secret rares. I think I got a Celebi, and that was as good as it got. I got the Celebi from Fusion Strike, which is an alternate rare, and the alternate art looked really good, but that's as good as it got for me. And it's something that the shop owner from my local hobby shop told me, was that there's literally no difference in any of the product. I can promise you. He's like, there's no difference in any of the product, whether you're buying sleeves, ETBs, bundles. They only do that because it's more affordable to people. There's no like data. There's not data on the pull rates for any of this stuff. So when people are saying, oh, I opened these and I got better pull rates, it's really relative and subjective. At the end of the day, your guaranteed pulls are going to be in the booster boxes. And so I didn't know any better. I was going in, I was buying gift boxes and sleeves, and I was just spending so much money and getting screwed. I probably spent like, and this is not an over-exaggeration, when you're buying from retail locations, you are screwing yourself. You are screwing yourself. And like, it's one thing to support your local hobby shop that has sleeves or has smaller boxes or bundles, but it's another thing to go into Target or Walmart and think that you're getting the drop on the Pokemon product. Like, yes, there's a chance that if you have a lot of expendable income, that you could make some good plays buying everything in there and then just sitting on it. Like, if I would have just sat on all the product that I went and bought out, I actually would be doing pretty good right now, despite the fact that I got screwed and was way overpaying for that product, as opposed to just buying booster boxes. But back to this original first, this first stage of being a collector. You're going to the easiest thing, the path of least resistance, which is going to these retail locations and buying out, whatever is there. And it's probably not the best choice long term, but it's what most people do. And, I'm unlucky, but some people might have got some fire pulls. There's occasionally that 10-year-old that goes into GameStop, opens up a pack in GameStop, and gets the rarest, secret rare. It happens all the time. I've been told by people that have worked at GameStop, it happens all the time. I've been told by people at my local hobby shop, it happens all the time. Someone will just be luckier than you, and that's just how it is. So you've got to be calculated and think about the probability of this stuff. And so that's that. Most people don't know what they're doing, and they buy a bunch of retail products starting out, because that's what I did, and I'm making the assumption that that's what other people are doing. Next thing I did was I was buying these singles. So when I was buying these singles, I was looking online, and I wasn't looking for specific singles like a smart person would. I was looking for the cheapest possible holographic Wizards of the Coast cards that I could find. It was horrendous, the poor quality cards that I was buying. It was so bad. I still have a thick stack of like cards that are not terrible condition, but like a crease here, a deep scratch there, edge wear all around. Like, it wasn't really savvy shopping. It was just like, I'm gonna buy these cards from these people because they're the cheapest ones that I can possibly find. And so I would scour the internet, eBay, Mercari, Goodwill, and I would look for the cheapest possible listings to get cards. And eventually that turned into, I've got all these stacks. Actually, I can actually move the camera a little bit. I've got all these stacks of cards in front of me. And so eventually I started just buying bulk of like any kind of bulk that I could get my hands on. Straighten that out a little bit. I eventually started buying any kind of bulk that I could get my hands on, and and that was actually not my worst call. I honestly don't feel any remorse about buying bulk commons and uncommons from WotC. Like, honestly, I'll never regret it. I love looking at these cards. They're priceless to me. But the same can happen with Modern at some point. Anyways, in hindsight, these might all look great, but I think everybody, when they look back to how they first collected, they're like, damn, I could have done that more effectively. I could have done that more efficiently. And this video is for those new collectors that are getting into the hobby, that are thinking, what do I even look for? Like, it's crazy. There's so much product out here. what does somebody even look for? Um, so, there's the confusion of buying singles and what to look for. And I'm sorry to say, guys, if you're a completionist like I am, you have a long way to go because there's endless product out there and there's so many deals, and you just have to start watching online and, TCG Player and Mercari. You have to, any of these websites, you just have to watch them like a hawk, and you have to continually watch the market. And if anything, another YouTuber made a really good point that I'm going to use right now. He said, well, when I first got into selling and collecting, I could not afford to buy the cards that I wanted to buy or collect or sell or flip, whatever. So basically, I learned the market inside and out. I learned everything about all the products and checking sold listings. That's one of the best things that you guys can do, because you can have a very small collection. You can have like 3 cards. Let's just say the most common ones, in my opinion: base set unlimited Charizard, base set unlimited Blastoise, base set unlimited Venusaur. The big 3. You can have just those 3 cards, but you can have, a game room with a sick computer and posters everywhere, and you can be extremely knowledgeable on the market as a whole. And in some ways, I wish I was that guy. I really do. I wish I wasn't the guy who was just, here, take my money, throwing money at Pokemon. That was not a wise decision on my part. If you can be calculated and have a small but valuable collection, that's, I think, the way a lot of collectors want to go. I still think these stages end up at the same place. I still think that buying sealed collections, and just buying collections in general, whether you're flipping or holding and collecting, buying people's collections is kind of a hot deal right now, because, everyone is analyzing the cards that are in binders or in boxes, and like no one really knows the price. And so people kind of, do a low ball estimate. I see dope ass binders go for like 700 or like 600, 500 all the time, and they're worth like 1,500. I see that happening all the time. So like at the end of the stages of being a collector, I really think it ends up there with you buying collections. It's kind of like this whole, being the plug, of TCG, like having the connections for getting the distribution of products, whether it's you're buying collections online, secondary market, or you're buying cases from a credible seller on Troll and Toad or TCG Player, whatever. Or a person that knows a person, whatever. I think we go from opening up retail products, number 1, to those singles, number 2. And you kind of don't know what you look for, but you're just collecting singles as you go, and that can be just such a nightmare and a headache in itself. But you're evolving, you're learning through this process. At first, you're just ignorant, just buying stuff. You don't know what you're doing. You can't possibly understand the hobby in a larger picture by just going out and buying retail products. You can't. At some point, you're going to have to look at the secondary market. Even if you're looking at modern product only and not looking at vintage product, you're going to have to look at the secondary market at some point to get a good idea and to have a good reading on the hobby and a good pulse on the hobby. So you're evolving, no pun intended, but you're evolving as a collector, collecting TCG. And it doesn't have to be Pokemon. It really can be anything, TCG related. But then you're going to move into the binders and the collecting. And there's a couple ways to go about this. If we're talking master sets, people sell entire master sets. And honestly, in some ways, that's kind of the way to go, because you're letting somebody else do the legwork. We've talked about this with grading, letting someone grade the cards for you, and just, somebody that sells graded cards, just buy it off of them. They make a little margin. They're making a living doing it. But you could also make a living selling those graded cards that they've done the grading for. Not only that, if you're buying graded cards and flipping them right off the bat, there's no wait time. If you're buying them raw and then grading them, there's a whole process involved in there, and it's very hard to come out on top. People do it all the time. I'm not saying it can't be done. My Charizard that's in in the corner right here. This is not a great example, but it was a decent markup on this one. I paid $375. Beckett gave it a 5. I think 5s are worth like 600 or 700. That means after my grading cost of $80, and then $375 plus tax. So let's just call it 400. Then another $80 to have it graded. 480. Let's just call it 500. It's 600 or 700. I'm making a pretty good markup on this Shadowless Charizard. God, this thing is absolutely beautiful. And like that's another thing. Like grading is, pick some cards that are really valuable, like the alternate arts from modern sets, or gold star cards, or shining cards, or the crystal cards like the Crystal Charizard and the Crystal Lugia from Skyridge and Aquapolis. Pick those super niche cards to get graded, because those bad boys are so much fun, I imagine, to send off to get graded, especially if you're confident off the get-go. But equally, buying those cards graded is also a good feeling, because you know exactly what you're getting. Well, relatively. But so, as you're getting to binder collections, as a collector, you're starting to learn how to organize. And that's where this kind of all comes together. Whether that binder is a master set that's very organized chronologically, or whether it's just you're putting the cards that you've been collecting as you go. Binders are a fantastic way to go about that. And honestly, there's not a lot of great options for storing slabs. They take up a lot of space. This slab is thick. You know how many cards you could fit just on top of each other in sleeves in a box? With this, you probably do like 20 or 30 cards with how thick this slab is. Yet, in a briefcase, you could probably only fit 100 to 150 slabs total. I know, because that's basically my first edition base set. 102 cards. 102 cards. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out on the number of cards in base set. That's not good. But the briefcase barely fits that. So binders are really a great method. And if you see a lot of YouTube channels, a lot of card collectors, you'll see shelves in the back with binders. Binders, long-term thing. Now, binders being upright, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why people store their binders upright makes zero sense to me. My binders are all in boxes, flat, sitting on a flat surface, and individual boxes. Like my cards, I always check them out. I periodically check, every couple weeks I'll check my binder cards to make sure that they're not warping or anything, and they're not, because they're sitting on top of each other flat. If you have your binder at an incline or propped up on a shelf, I would definitely be careful of that. But this third stage of collecting, the stage, if you will, it's very important, because it's where you start to kind of be more organized, and it starts to, this is where the shelves begin, where you're starting to show off and display your stuff, and you're more organized than you used to be. And that's a lot of fun, because you can have, like this shelf, if you go way down into my video log, into the history of the videos, this shelf started out with nothing on it, and it looked cool then, and it looks cool now, even though now it's such a mess. There's so much crap on these shelves, and now there's nowhere to put newer displays or things that I also want to show. So I don't know how I'm gonna make that work. I feel like these sneakers are gonna come off. Also, I do want to address this weird thing that happened real quick. I know I shouldn't be cutting into this video, but I do want to address what happened in the last mail day video. The video cut out at 22 minutes because my phone said the storage was full. This is a brand new iPhone 14. I have no idea why it would say my storage is full. The issue kind of went away. It didn't entirely resolve itself, but it was saying my entire thing was full. 120 gigabytes of YouTube, which makes no sense. I don't download anything from YouTube. And 120 gigabytes from photos, which makes no sense because I don't even think I had a gigabyte of photos. So turns out I put the card, my wife's trying to help me. We can't figure it out. I'm spending like 2 hours freaking out trying to research on Google, every symptom, what it could be, what's wrong with my phone. Did I get the phone with all the bugs? What's going on here? Because, I just wanted to have a nice phone. I've had the iPhone 8 for forever, and I wanted something that would help with my YouTube and help with my bar business to promote the business and take better photos. So it was shocking to me when all the storage was taken up. I put it on the charger. I checked back later. It said that only 120 gigs was taken up, half of what it said before. And then on top of that, And my wife is witness to this. It said that it was photos and YouTube, but that got changed into all data and software. So that my iPhone decided, oh, all this space, this 120 gigs or 110 gigs, whatever it was, it had a gray space filled up, and that was saying that it was all data. So I think that fluctuates over time, but I think my phone bugged out or something and basically was like, screw you, you can't do this video, you can't finish this. It was weird, and I apologize that the video cut out like that, but it's fine now. I don't know what the deal is. I just want to be able to make my videos and continue doing me. Anyways, binders, very important. Just kind of the organization, maybe not even binders, maybe not binders as a stage, but like organization. Like we become more organizational collectors, and that's very important. To have everything where you know it is, because eventually it gets kind of, you turn into a hoarder and you don't even know where your stuff is. Like I have so much stuff in bins in my garage, and that's just because there's no space in this room anymore. But like that's part of the organization. You know, you start filing stuff away and putting it in bins, and that's smart because it's also a good way to store it and protect it, keep it in a controlled environment. Because these cards are very vulnerable. If your cards get humid, they will warp like a mofo. They'll start to turn to curve like this. I've got cards that just sit in here that are starting to do that. So like if it's not protected in sleeves and top loaders, that's why they're always saying, you know, put your cards on a top loader, treat them with respect. Okay, so after that, we're gonna get into the grading aspect, which we just talked about in another video, but you start feeling like this isn't good enough. It's never ending, and that's why it's like, it's such a daunting task to have a sick Pokemon collection. As childish as that sounds, it's like, I just want the best Pokemon collection as a grown man. Like that's what I want. It's so daunting to do that because, you know, you get all this stuff and you're still unhappy, and that's human nature, right? Like it's also like, if you're in this hobby, find time to be content. And that's what I love about making YouTube videos, because at the end of the day, this stuff doesn't really make me that happy. It's not that. It's actually the engagement with you guys, people taking interest in what I have to say and my experience, you know, in the hobby as a collector the past couple of years, watching the market change, you know, watching certain products fall, watching certain products skyrocket like Evolving Skies. I mean, it just phenomenal to see this stuff. To be a part of it is just a real privilege. That's what makes me happy. And, you know, I still have issues. I just bought 2 first edition Charizards. I have issues, okay? You don't just buy those cards. That is really expensive cardboard. I don't care who you are. I don't care how respected of a collector you are. There's limits to this stuff. And, you know, especially when you're like me and you have a family and you're young and you're still trying to figure out your stuff financially, that's a risky, bold move to buy cards like that. But I love this stuff, and it makes me happy. And shiny cardboard, enough said, right? But you have to end up being content with what you have at some point. You know, you have to just be happy at some point. Otherwise, it's endless suffering. And if you're you know, intelligent enough to know this, it's common sense. Life is endless suffering. I'm sorry, but life is endless suffering, and cards are not going to make your quality of life better. I mean, yeah, you could sell them, make money off them. I have a YouTube that could bring me revenue. So in some ways, did cards make my life better? We'll find out. And I deserve that because I took massive risks buying into all this stuff. But like, you have to just end up being content, because here's what happens. I build all these binder sets. I organize all my stuff. Everything's organized. Everything's in bins. Everything's in binders. It's starting to look really good. I got my shelf worked out. It's starting to look really good. I got displays all worked out. It's starting to look good. But then I'm like, but what if? It's just those 2 words. What if I had this set graded or that set graded? And I already did it. I already fell victim. Well, not that I already did it. I've been doing it for a long time. I've always been like, oh, well, I could get the first edition cards, but then I'll just want them graded. So I ended up jumping to just buying all the graded first edition cards, because I knew if I do a binder, I'm going to want those. So I ended up buying a graded first edition collection, essentially buying them one by one. Got the Charizards on the way. It's finally going to be complete. But I chose for my binders to be the unlimited sets because it was so much cheaper and easier to do. And oh my God, filling out Wizards of the Coast, like filling out vintage master sets, whew, it is a very daunting task, guys. I would not wish it on my worst enemy. I was up late nights for hours trying to organize those cards, putting them into binders. I wouldn't trade it for anything though. It's awesome being able to open up your binders and see everything organized. But yeah, point of this is, that fourth stage, ripping up retail products, going into singles, going into organization with the binders, and then it's not enough, and then you want graded stuff. It's these stages we go through of, a never-ending need for more, more, more. It's dangerous, and you have to ask yourself, if you go down that graded rabbit hole, you're going to go down that rabbit hole, and you're not going to be able to stop. I'm speaking from experience. I'm not saying it's a fact that you're not going to be able to stop. People have different willpower. You might be able to have a different, tendency to being addicted to stuff. I get addicted to things very easily. I'm a fun junkie. Our daughter just woke up, so I know my wife is going to be pissed. Yeah, she's not gonna be happy with me. But we are wrapping up, coming up at 40 minutes. The next thing would be, after graded, is buying sealed products. Buying sealed products, whether it's vintage $20,000 booster boxes, or buying the newest boxes that have come out for $200 or $600 for a case. Buying that stuff, or buying collections and either flipping them or sitting on them. It's almost inevitable that it will become about money. Like, no one can say that it won't become about money at some point. Some people don't ever let it get that deep, but if you're like me and you want to do something to the full extent, then ultimately it's inevitable that you're going to get to a point, you're going to get to a crossroad where you're like, what do I have to do to make this make sense monetarily? Like, how much would I have to buy and then sell down the road to make up for my collection? Because I will not accept dumping in 2 years worth of salary into Pokemon cards and just letting that be that. Like, that's why I had to start a YouTube channel. That's why I had to start a card selling store. Everybody who's like a seller in this hobby, a lot of those people have been down the same rabbit holes as me. Some of you may be going down those rabbit holes currently, but you have to create a self-sustaining hobby, right? Even if you don't want to do it as a full-time gig, as like a job, you still want to find a way to make it make sense. Like, we all make these excuses to ourselves. Oh, well, if I get this and this grade, it's probably going to double down the road. It's all speculative. We have no idea what's going to happen down the road. I have a good idea of what's going to happen down the road, but I don't have any assurance of what's going to happen. A couple things I can tell you. MSRP prices are going to go up on booster boxes. So we know that naturally boxes are going to get more expensive, which is going to automatically make Sword and Shield set boxes look cheaper and like they were good value at the time. But everything is relative, like inflation, all prices for everything are going up. So even if the MSRP goes up and people are unhappy about that, that just means that stuff is probably going to be twice as expensive down the road. Like, it's all relative. But I really feel like that is the last stage, and if you want to just cut to the chase and save yourself a lot of time and be a really savvy collector, but not get too sucked into the specifics of like it's crazy, because when you're collecting singles, like that's like a never-ending affinity for like buying singles, but it's so much money put into one tiny little card. It's so much, and how often do you look at that same card and enjoy it over and over again? I will say there are certain cards that have that effect. This card for me has that effect. It was the first Shadowless Charizard I ever bought. I will always look at it with just awe and respect. And it's only a 5, but I'm just like, gosh, this thing is so cool. This thing is so beautiful. I'm actually going to show it, I'm going to show a close-up of it right now, because it is absolutely gorgeous. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. absolutely gorgeous. How could you not want to get a Charizard? You know? How could you not? And that's just the easiest one that I feel like most people go after is buying, a Charizard. But it's tough because that's stuff that you appreciate the artwork and you appreciate like just how cool that card looks. But at the end of the day, I don't know if that's the best way to go from a collector standpoint. As you evolve, you'll learn that for yourself. That like really, if I could do it all over, nah, I probably do it the same way. Just and that's the thing. Everybody is different. Everybody has their own preferences, their own strategies, their own collecting habits, and routines. Like I can't say that I would do it any differently, but I will say I'm trying desperately to have a good balance this upcoming era, this upcoming year. If I don't like Scarlet and Violet, I'm going to be stocking up on Sword and Shield cases because I think Sword and Shield is still an amazing set to be stocking up on. And I still have a lot of these boxes. They're all behind these displays, ETBs and boxes, and they're in bins in the garage, and they're in my closet. And I have a lot of modern product, but not nearly as much as I could have had I invested solely in modern and listened to a lot of the YouTubers that were saying, come on, this is basically all upside and minimal risk. There was a lot of argument between, no, there's only upside in vintage because it's been out of print for 20 years, 15 years, whatever. And then the people like, no, booster boxes are $80 a pop, $90 a pop. They're only going to go up from here. You're crazy. Prices are never going to be $70, $60 for a booster box. That's not going to happen. There's such good arguments on both sides. I have so much love for both the vintage and modern community in this hobby. But I think at the end of the day, having back shelves full and stocked of cases and boxes not only looks really appealing, like the people that have like shelving that's stocked up with ETBs, that looks really good too. But I just think at the end of the day, it's always going to be about the booster boxes. Best bang for your buck, best investment strategy, best long-term hold value. It's been a staple to the hobby. Booster boxes have been a staple in the hobby for such a long time. And it shouldn't have taken 20 years for me to realize this. Now, nobody could have timed the market. Nobody could have ever known that Pokemon was going to blow up the way it did. There were some serious things that were going into play to make this happen. King Pokemon is a big part of that. If I'm going to bring up names, that is a name I'm comfortable bringing up. Not for slandering, but, he was a smart guy. People are calling him a scammer, but I think he was a very calculated guy, and he wanted to raise the value of everything he had, regardless of his personality, his character, his morals. He's a businessman. He's purely a businessman in a lot of respects. And so many of us are coming into the scene as businessmen, and you have to respect that. It's not always going to be a hobby that's pure, good-hearted nerds. It's not going to be that. I am a nerd. Deep down, I'm a nerd. And you know what? I'm going to do a video coming up explaining to you guys how I was brought up, what kind of person I was, and how I changed and evolved myself through the years, through going to private schools and colleges, being exposed to, all kinds of stuff. Everybody has their story, and, I'm saving that for a good day to tell you guys my story and where I come from. Money is inevitable. And so I think everybody at the end of the line comes to that last stage of collecting and they realize I should have been doing this from the drop. And so what I'm telling you guys is if you want to build an amazing collection and a sound investment portfolio, I really feel like the way to go is to buy sealed product, buy bulk sealed product. Now, that's easier said than done, right? Oh God, I love this chair. It's so comfy. It's easier said than done, right? Like I was talking to somebody today and they're like, yeah, but I'm not going to buy a $600 case. And $600 is like the low point. That's like the low point. I think the $600 case days are over. But, that's not an option for everybody. But, okay, if you're going to buy ETBs or booster bundles, go for it. I still think sealed product at the end, even sleeves, just for God's sake, don't open them. And that's, you should always, cards are for opening, right? But if you're looking at this is an investment, and you don't want to lose your butt on buying Pokemon cards, but you want to be a part of the hobby, and you want to be a part of the analytic culture of it, and watching the market, and learning from it. I really think that having a sealed collection is the way to go. And you can do this with vintage too. It's you're spending a lot of money, but I think that the vintage product is going to go up too. I don't ever think it's going to like bottom out and die, because eventually it's all going to be gone. You're going to see base set unlimited booster boxes going for $100K in a couple of years. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. This is not financial advice. So I'm just saying, like, I, without a shadow of a doubt, feel like base set unlimited, not even first edition, just forget first edition boxes will be 150, 200K. I think that's where the market will end up being for this stuff. People that have their hands on first edition boxes that are legitimate, the sky is going to be the limit for those types of things, those first print runs. But like even the unlimited boxes, I could easily see being like 50, 60K. And then the stuff like the EX series and like the Last of WotC, Skyridge, Aquapolis, Expedition, all the Neo series, all those sets, even if they're not first edition, I feel like they're going to be like 50, 60K. And, when you think about modern product, just minimize that number. I mean, by saying that, I'm saying that all the booster boxes from this era, this past era, because now we're moving into Scarlet Violet, all the booster boxes from this past era, I think are going to be $3,000 boxes. And Evolving Skies is a perfect example. It's leading the charts. Whatever Evolving Skies is doing, these other sets are bound to do at some point. They're going to reach those heights. They might take them a couple years later, but they're going to reach those heights eventually, and they're going to be scarce, and they're eventually going to be non-existent. They printed so much of this stuff, but you also have to understand so many people are coming into the hobby. So it doesn't matter that they're printing all this stuff, because people are just gobbling up the supply. Anyways, I gotta catch my breath here. This video is gonna take so long to upload. But sealed product, it's a gold mine. It's that and Grail cards. It's a gold mine. I think a good card to watch is the first edition Charizard from first edition base set. I think it's a great index. I think it's a great barometer to see something, to gauge where the market is. I'm watching another PSA 5. I'm considering buying a third PSA 5 Charizard. Like, I don't know why there's PSA 5s popping up, but I want them. And if this card sits at $4,000, I will definitely be considering putting in a bid, at least one bid. And in the next coming weeks and months, if we see first edition Charizards, and I know this is like, that's a very specific card, but I do think that it's a good index to watch, and a benchmark card, if you will. If the first edition Charizard ends up hitting $3,500, $3,700, $3,800 for a PSA 5, a card that was $5,000 to $6,000 just a couple months back, maybe a year back, I think that's going to be a serious indicator of what the market is doing, and in a good way. I think that you can still buy the dip. I think that I would still love to buy a card for $1,000 less than I bought mine at. I'm not going to look at it like I'm an idiot. I'm just going to say, okay, I bought at higher prices, but I'm still going to buy this stuff as it goes lower. Anyways, guys, those are the 5 stages. I hope this was helpful. I really do urge you guys, if you're thinking about long-term collecting, to just look at sealed product before anything, because the thing is, while you have that sealed product, you can always open it up, and it'll be so much more fun when it's sitting on the shelf a couple years from now and you're like, I'm gonna open up that box, let's do it. Yeah, I think sealed product is really the way to go. And I think if you're going to collect sealed product, but you still want those alternate arts, when we're talking strictly about modern products here, buy the alternate arts. That's what I did. I just decided, I've learned what I had to learn the hard way. Buy the sealed product and buy the single card that you want. Do them hand in hand. It might be pricey, but do them hand in hand. But I know people that buy cases and just rip through boxes until they get their card, and then they manage to sell all of their bulk to like Troll and Toad or TCG Player. They sell all their bulk. They price out all the single cards that are worth something. They sell all their duplicates and their triples and doubles and whatever, and they make it work. They make it work. Not only do they have all this product that they're sitting on, but then they're able to open it and have the full experience. I think with the current environment with Pokemon, if you wanna pull the card that you want, you're gonna have to open a couple cases, and there's a way to make that financially work. I have not figured that out, but I do believe that there's people that have figured it out. If you buy a couple cases, hopefully in your first case of 6 booster boxes, you pull the secret rare or the valuable card. Okay, now I've really pissed off Aspen. So that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you guys so much. Remember, 5 stages. Bear with me. I know my daughter's crying, but 5 stages. You're going to be buying retail product. Then you're going to be buying the singles. Then you're going to be buying the binder stuff. You're going to be organizing. Then you're going to go graded because it's never ending. Then you're probably going to end up with buying sealed product. So those are the 5 stages. That's how we evolve as collectors, in my opinion, based on my experiences. And that's a wrap, guys. Peace out.